Yeah, welcome to the talk. Today I'm going to talk about wallets, or about the security aspect of wallets more specifically. You are, I'm sure, all familiar with wallets. You even installed a wallet here at the conference to pay for some things. So for us, this is kind of a normal thing, but we have to remind ourselves that there are some challenges around this. In comparison to the traditional wallets or bank accounts, we have a couple of things to take care of. So because if you lose your password or your credit card in a traditional system, then you just call your bank and you get access again. It's not really a problem. But in the decentralized world, we have to take full responsibility of our funds. When people start out in cryptocurrencies and buy some coins, they usually do that on an exchange, and then the first instinct is to just keep the money on an exchange because, well, that's what people are used to. But as we can see in the past, but also very recently, and there are many in between, and probably some newer ones that I didn't even hear about, exchanges are dangerous because you don't hold the keys, and that means they have full custody of your funds, and you don't really know what's going to happen with your coins. So let's take a look at the specific challenges around wallets. The first one is one that is commonly overlooked, which is around generating a secret or a private key. The second one is the storage of a secret and how to protect it against theft and against loss. And the last one is how you can actually interact with a secret while keeping it secure. Then there are other risks with blockchain, such as 51% attacks or contract security, but those are kind of beyond our control from a wallet perspective, so we will not cover those. So let's first look at kind of a big problem, or let's say this is not only a theoretical problem. You may think like, yes, seed generation, or that's like a theoretical attack, but it never actually happened, or dependency, malicious dependency attacks. But there are actually many examples of this being an issue. Like a wallet by accident sent mnemonics to Google for spell checking. There are two cases where malicious dependency ended up leaking users' secrets. And then the most recent one happened, I think, 2 months ago. We actually still don't know what the problem was. But I think about between $30 million to $100 million were lost because, and the users, they basically don't know what happened. The money was just gone, and, well, now, sadly, they will probably not get it back. So let's first talk about what a secret is, or a private key. The private key is basically what manages your coins and what you need in order to prove ownership, and so you're able to spend it on the blockchain. A secret is nothing else than a random number between 1 and a very, very large number, and the most important thing is that it is chosen randomly. And this may sound easier than it actually is, because computers are very bad at randomness. So they cannot really produce any value that is truly random. It's usually a combination between system time and maybe some... they're trying to get as much randomness as possible, but this is actually a quite hard problem. So you may say, well, there are hardware random number generators. It's like a piece of hardware that almost every device has nowadays, and the sole purpose is generating random numbers. But the problem is that there were cases in the past where nation states, they actually infiltrated such chip factories, and there are some chips in the wild where we don't really know if the output is really random. It may look random to us, but it could be that someone who has the right keys can actually reproduce all the randomness. So this is a very, very important thing in the setup process of a wallet. There is actually a very recent vulnerability that is related to this. They call it MilkSat, which is a library that was used by, I think, mainly in the Bitcoin community. Even in the book Mastering Bitcoin, the example to generate your seed phrase was using this tool. And by accident, they were using the seed generation in a way that it was actually able to reproduce many, or in theory all, if you brute force long enough, seeds that were generated with this tool. And the reason why it's called milk sad is because if your system time is 1 and you generate the seed, then it starts with the mnemonic starts with milk and sad. So yeah, then the next point is the storage of a secret. So once you have generated it, how do you, or it's important that you store it securely, because as I mentioned, in a centralized system, you can just always get it back. But in a decentralized system, if you lose the secret, so if you lose access to it, your funds are lost. And if someone steals your secret, your funds are also lost. Nobody can help you in this case. And then the last point is how you interact with your secret, because obviously you want to use your secret to pay for something, to participate in DeFi and everything else that you want to do in the cryptocurrency world, which obviously the usability is a lot better with in a hot wallet, because the wallet has direct access to the mnemonic. It can sign any kind of transaction that it wants, and there is this is the most seamless experience. But the problem is the security, because as we've seen in the few slides before, there were actually cases where hot wallets were exploited and people lost their money. Then cold wallets, they are a lot better with security, because the device is specifically made to hold the private key and not leak it. But the usability is kind of limited, because you need a USB cable and carry it around with usually your laptop. I mean, now there is like Bluetooth, but yeah, that's kind of one of the challenges. So in more detail, classical hardware wallets, they are usually not truly air-gapped, meaning that there is always a connection between the device and like the secure device and the online world, usually a cable, which means there is the potential for a lot of communication, which could in theory be an exploit that exploits some vulnerability in the hardware wallet. So you don't have any control over what happens over the cable. Then there is also the supply chain attack problem, like you don't know what chips are used inside of such hardware devices. The usability, because usually the devices are quite small and they are limited also in processing power. And then the availability is something that people often overlook, but we checked and it looks like the Ledger hardware device can actually not be shipped to almost 1 billion people because of political reasons. So to solve these issues, we came up with a solution called AirGap. The AirGap solution consists of 2 apps. There is the AirGap Vault, which holds your private key and basically acts like a hardware wallet and is completely offline at all times. And then the companion app, which is called AirGap Wallet, it shows you your balance and allows you to talk to the blockchain. It's basically like lerlife, if you know that. So basically the slogan is you turn your old or spare smartphone into a hardware wallet. So that means that has a couple of advantages. So supply chain attacks, for example, are not really relevant because you can use any kind of device. Also, you can get it in any country because all you need is a mobile phone. Yeah, and mobile phones are actually quite good for this purpose because they are very battle tested, because big companies are using phones to secure their data or the data of their employees, and they have security features like biometric authentication and secure enclave to secure data. So now let's go over these 3 points that I made before regarding the challenges of a wallet and how we solve them in our app. So the first one is generating a secret. As I mentioned, having good source of randomness is very important. For that reason, I think there is actually a video of how it looks. We use the camera, the gyroscope, touch input, and the microphone together with the random number generator, and we mesh it all together over a period of like 10, 15 seconds, and then out comes a secret that has no one single point of failure. So in case your random number generator is compromised, then an attacker would also have to reproduce the video feed and the audio feed, which is highly unlikely. And then we also support, for the advanced users, we support entropy collection by dice rolls and coin flips. This basically means you roll a dice or flip a coin in the physical world, and then you enter the sequence into the app, and it gives you a deterministic mnemonic that you can then check and make sure that our app doesn't have any flaws in generating mnemonics. Okay, so yes, then the storage of the secret. Here we basically just require the user to make a backup of the seed during this setup of the wallet. This is a bit inconvenient, but it's very important, because if you set up a wallet and you don't back it up, and then half a year later you switch your phone, and then you remember you had some currencies on there, they are sadly gone, and you cannot recover it if you don't have a backup. We also have a backup solution that we call social recovery, which is based on the Shamir's secret sharing algorithm, which means you can basically split a single secret into multiple parts and then distribute them among family or friends. And you need a certain threshold in order to reconstruct the original secret. So you could split it in five pieces, but you need any 3 of those to recover the original. So you give one to your parents, one to the bank, one you bury in the ground, and then you can kind of make your own setup in case you lose your phone and your regular backup. And we are also using the secure enclave of the device to secure it while it's loaded on the device. And to interact with the secret, or with to send funds, as I mentioned before, you basically use QR codes with the companion app. That's your everyday phone, and you just scan the QR codes, which is actually quite a process that's quite straightforward once you get used to it. We are also aiming to make the vault interoperable. We already support MetaMask, we support Rabbit Wallet for Ethereum, and Sparrow, or basically a Sparrow wallet is a Bitcoin wallet, and there are others like Spectre, Blue Wallet. So you can use those as an interface and then store the private key in AirGap Vault, in an AirGap setup, but then profit from the more advanced features of those wallets. And we are also working on making it compatible with the Superhero app. So you can use the Superhero app to see your balances and connect to the DeFi apps. But then once you need to sign something, you would get the QR code and sign it with our app. Our app also has multi-currency support, and there are a bunch of more features like fully open source and some advanced features like BIP85 child entropy that are very interesting, but we don't have time to get into those. So now we come to the new and exciting part, which is called isolated modules. One risk on a more technical level for many wallets, including ours, is that dependencies that you include, because developers cannot code everything from scratch. You kind of rely on other packages that other developers or teams made to make the development workflow faster. The problem is that you basically have to trust those developers to give you, trust or verify that what they give you does exactly what they claim to do, because there could be mistakes, or they could have a malicious intent behind that module, which, as I showed before, happened 2 times already that we know of. Another kind of risk is that the same mnemonic is used for all coins or all currencies, which means that if some currency module would leak the private key, then all of your assets would be compromised. So if like the Bitcoin module had a problem, then Ethereum and Eternity would also be affected. So so there should be a small diagram that shows how, currently the setup is you have the kind of the native app container, and then everything else is inside one box where all the modules and everything can talk together. And here it should show how we basically extracted the individual currency modules out of the application, so they are completely isolated and cannot talk to each other. This is basically the why, because every module runs in its own context and they cannot talk to each other. And if one module by accident or maliciously does anything bad, then it will not affect any other module or the base layer, which is kind of the AirGap Vault application. It also allows users to add and remove modules kind of on the fly as they wish. And it makes onboarding new developers easier because now developers, they don't really have to go through us and ask us if we want to support a certain currency, and we don't have to review their code because they can just write it, and then if people trust that person, they can include it in our app and benefit from all of the AirGap QR codes standard that we have by default. It also embraces like the open source community because we can bring together developers from different ecosystems. And one exciting feature is also, especially from the Bitcoin world, this is something that they care about a lot. They don't want to have other currencies in their apps because of the risks. So we can now basically offer an empty shell and then only put the Bitcoin module inside for the highest security. Yeah, and basically we covered this already. Yeah, and the last point is important. Modules only get the derived key. They don't get the full mnemonic. So even in the worst case, if one module somehow manages to leak the key, they can only steal the assets of that currency. They can't steal the assets of all the other currencies. So in the end, it's almost like Legos. You kind of build your own app. You use the modules that you want. Yeah, and now very quickly, we can have a look for the developers on how that is done. It's basically, there are a couple of interfaces, but the main ones are for the offline side and for the online side. And the offline side, as you see, is very simple. I think there is one shared, the base protocol, so you have to define some metadata. But here, the most important one is basically the signed transaction and how to derive a key. And then in the online one, it's a bit more, you have to get transactions from the blockchain, get the balance and like a transaction history, some things like this. So very, very basic functionality that you can use your own SDK from like for example, the Eternity SDK and do all of those things. You just have to kind of put it into that interface. And this is actually what we did for Eternity. I mean, Eternity has been a part of AirGap since the beginning. I think that was like 5 years ago or 6 years. But this is how it looks now. So you just define like the derivation path and the regex for addresses. And then as an example, this is like a broadcast. So we just send it to the RPC, the signed transaction. Yes, and to install a module, currently you basically just have to bring it on your phone somehow by USB stick, SD card. We are also experimenting with using the QR scanner with animated QR codes. But because a module is usually around 2 megabytes, that would probably take too long because you can't send that much data. But it would be a fun thing if you could like watch a YouTube video to update your app. And this is how it looks like. You just open the system dialog, then you import it. It will give you some information, and it will also show you the author, like the public key. And of course, there needs to be a signature, so nobody can spoof to like a malicious update. Yeah, and then it's inside the app. Here we have Moonbase as a development version. And then once you add it, it's just a part of the app as all the other protocols. Yeah, and this feature is brand new. I think it was internally, we have used it for a few months now or weeks. But now I think in the coming days, it will actually be released. So we invite developers to write modules. Yeah, so to summarize, our app is open source, free to use. We have reproducible builds, and now we also have a modular system, which we hope will attract more developers and invite more currencies to use AirGap. Yeah, that's it. Are there any questions?
Yes. Is the QR code communication protocol specified and open source?
Is it what?
The QR code
Mm-hmm.
communication protocol, is that some sort of standard that you've made?
So it depends on the currency. Historically, in the beginning, like 6 years ago, nobody did QR-based communication. So we came up with our own protocol, and that, I mean, open source, of course. I mean, everything is open source that we do, but it was our own kind of standard, and it also had some limitations. The first version you couldn't have animated QR codes, and now basically you can put as much data in it as you want because it will just have an animated QR code. But then I think about 2 or 3 years ago, the Blockchain Commons group, they came up with they call it the BCUR standard, which is a standard for Bitcoin wallets. So now for Bitcoin, we use this standard. And for Ethereum, we actually work together with Keystone Wallet, and a hardware wallet that is also QR based. And we together created an EIP. So for Ethereum, there is now an EIP standard that defines the QR codes, and we support this, of course. And we are currently working with other chains that have QR-based needs, and to come up with a standard that is. They are all based on this original Bitcoin one. It's just the messages that are defined for the specific currencies. And I think there is like at the conference I saw that there is a new Uniswap. Oh, no, wait, is it Uniswap that wants to release a hardware wallet? And they're using also this EIP standard. So hopefully this is something that will be standardized in the next few years.